principles of high impact supervision. Now, as a supervisor, I always say that your performance and your growth does not depend on how good of a performer you are. I don't know whether that really comes out very well. But more importantly, your performance or your growth is dependent on how well you can make other people perform. And there is a very big difference between doing something yourself and inspiring somebody else to do it. One of the biggest challenges I faced when I became a supervisor many years ago, I started supervising people when I was very young in my career. I think I had just completed, I had just graduated. And one of the biggest challenges that I faced was, if I'm doing a report, I could give it my best. I could do everything possible to make that report stand out. And I would ensure that that report is done on time. Okay? And it is done the way it's supposed to be done. And then a time comes when I am not the one who is doing that report. I'm supervising somebody else who is supposed to do that report. And sometimes you see them taking a bit of time. Sometimes you see them having a lot of errors and those kind of things. And sometimes you feel, just bring that report. I am going to do it myself. I mean, that is something that I kept telling myself. You just give me that task. Let me just do it. Because you see, somebody is not putting in as much effort as you would be putting. But then I came to realize that if I keep taking tasks from people simply because they're not able to perform them very well, I will never become a good supervisor. I will never become a good supervisor. And therefore, instead of taking tasks from people, what I used to do was to improve my skills in instructing them on how to do it. Improving my supervision skills. And today, if I give somebody a task, I show them how to do it. I do not interfere with them. We only meet at the end of the task when I will be holding them accountable for the results. And that is really what supervision is all about. Ensuring that you provide the task, show people how to do it, then get out of their way and hold them accountable for results. And that is what we're going to be learning today. Now, supervision, just like leadership, is an art. It's not a science. It's not like management. That is why it's a big difference between supervision and management. Management is a science, and that is why we usually talk about management science. Supervision, on the other hand, just like leadership, is an art. And what does that mean? What that means is that everyone has their own way of achieving results through supervision, just like where everyone has their own style of leadership and they still achieve results. In the same case with supervision. However, that being the case, even if that is the case, there are some generally accepted principles of good supervision that are accepted the world over, where if I see you following these principles, okay, I will know you're a good supervisor. I will know you're a great supervisor. And as we interact, this training is going to take 2 weeks. So as we interact with within those 2 weeks, the idea is to ensure that you become the best supervisor there is. Okay, and some people usually say supervision is a lower level management. Okay, and obviously it's not. You know, some people usually say the manager is here, the supervisor is here. So you come from being a worker, then to a supervisor, then to a manager. It doesn't work like that. Supervision is the highest calling there can ever be. And I want to try and convince you that when you look at all those levels, whatever is up here is supervision. And I want you to think about a president of a country, the president of your country. Think about your president. Do you think there is something that would make us call the president a supervisor? Are there people that the president supervises? And the answer is yes. In Kenya, we call them cabinet secretaries, or he even supervises the deputy president. In other countries, I know sometimes it is called ministers, government ministers. And therefore, the president is a supervisor. In as much as we may not call the president a manager, because he has managers under him, or she has managers under him. A president is definitely a supervisor. Okay? So never be lied to by anyone that supervision is, or a supervisor is down here. The CEO, the chief executive officer of an organization, is a supervisor, because he or she supervises other people. In fact, the CEO may not be a manager, because he has or she has managers. The CEO is supervising the finance manager, is supervising the human resource manager, is supervising the procurement manager maybe, but his role is supervision. And therefore, supervision is the highest calling, is the highest level you can ever go to. Okay, and that is why it is called overall, supervision, overall vision, overseeing everything. So when we talk about supervision, what we are saying is that we have some generally accepted principles that we must understand and we must hold on to if we want to become great supervisors. And this is what I want to share today. And I hope to do that in very, very simple language. I want to try and use that, share that in very, very, very simplified and simple language, but it is not simplistic. I try not to be simplistic, but I'll try to use a very simple and understandable language. Because on Monday, I will ask you to tell me the principles of good supervision. And probably I will have a present for anyone who gets all of them. Great. Number one, principle number one. And I think it's the most important to me. You must ensure that people understand clearly what is expected of them. You cannot supervise people who do not have a very clear understanding of what is expected of them. If people are fumbling in the dark, we do not have very clear expectation. We do not have clarity in terms of the results. Those people are not going to deliver. And therefore, as a supervisor, your first and foremost responsibility is to satisfy yourself that everyone in the team understands exactly what is expected of them. Okay? So how then do you ensure that people understand exactly what is expected of them? You do that through communication. Okay? You must be a powerful communicator as a supervisor. And the aspect of communication is something that we're going to give a lot of prominence as we are going to be, in our 2 weeks. Because you see, communication is the creation of understanding between the sender of the message and the receiver. That creation of understanding, that is what we call a communication. What that means is that we do not want you to say one thing and then your team understands something else. I always hear people say, oh, I didn't know I was expected to do that. I didn't know I was expected to do that. Okay? Now, as a supervisor, and this is what we're going to be saying, as a supervisor, it is your responsibility to ensure that you are understood. It is not the responsibility of the person you're supervising. It is your responsibility to satisfy yourself that you're well understood. Because you're the carrier of the message, you're the vision bearer. Therefore, you must inculcate that vision in your team. Okay? Now, I don't want to dwell here any longer. But remember, people must have clarity in terms of exactly what is expected of them. We are going to get back to this because we cannot exhaust this. We will come back to this and we will dig deeper and see how do we do that. It's a very, very profound point. Okay, so that is principle number one. Principle number two, principles of good supervision, principles of high impact supervision. People must have guidance in their work, information, techniques, enabling better work, coaching, and personality improvement suggestions. Now, it is not enough to let people know what is expected of them. It is also critical to show them how Because even if I know that I am expected to fly a plane from one city to the other, and I don't know how to do it, it's going to be useless. I don't know how to fly a plane. Maybe someday I'm going to learn. It's something that is in my bucket list. But until then, I don't know. And therefore, sometimes you need to ask yourself, sometimes I talk to supervisors and maybe they're business owners, they are entrepreneurs, or they're managers, there's even CEOs, and they come and tell me, Benson, I'm very frustrated by my team. And I ask them, why? You tell these people to do this, they always do the other. Okay? Or these people, why can't they be able to close a sale? Why? What's wrong with them? Why can't they be able to win funding from donors? And I always ask them, have you considered that maybe they simply don't know? Have you considered that possibility? Maybe they want to, and they know exactly what they are expected to do, but they don't know how. They simply don't know. I remember when I was in my first year at the university, one professor was very frustrated with us because he would ask us questions and we would just look at him like this. And he was like, what's wrong with you people? You make me feel like I'm speaking to desks. Okay? So he was always frustrated. Then one day he came to class and he told us, you know what first years? Freshers, as they used to call us freshers. You know what freshers? I had a liberation last night. I had a liberation. And I feel so free. I feel so. It was revealed to me that you guys, you're not refusing to answer my questions. You simply don't know. You innocently don't know. Like I ask a question and you're not arrogant. Yeah, you simply don't know. So he told us, I think that was a very good liberation. So is your team difficult? Is your team difficult as a supervisor? Is your team difficult? Maybe they simply don't know. It's as simple as that. They innocently don't know. And therefore, you must give guidance. You must show people how to do things. Okay? For me, when I'm engaging my team, because our work involves probably a lot of calling clients. Sometimes I will call clients, when my team is there so that they can listen to, if a client says, I don't have time, how do you go about that? If a client says, if maybe a client is having doubts on whether Vantage Africa exists or not, how do you respond to that? If a client, because those are some of the things that, clients express, those are some of the fears they express. One, they're not very sure that we exist, or whether we are genuine, probably because of the many scams they've had to deal with. Two, they might feel like, yes, we exist, but they're not very sure whether they are going to get value for money. Okay? And therefore, they express that concern. So sometimes when we are engaging clients, I call clients and sometimes they are listening because I want them to know this is how you give confidence. You improve the confidence in a client. Okay? So you need to provide information, provide techniques enabling better work. If there is a shortcut, if there's an easier way of doing something, show them. Okay? If there's some technology that can help them work faster, show them, coach them. We're going to be talking about coaching. Because as a supervisor, you must be a coach. I want to circle this. Coaching is very, very important as a supervisor. And we are going to be talking about a model called the GROW model. The GROW model in coaching. And by the way, when we talk about coaching, what we mean is that, you see, a long time ago, a supervisor was expected to be the most knowledgeable. A supervisor was up here and everybody else was down here, and they would look up to the supervisor. And in case they don't know something, where would they go to? The supervisor. If they are finding any difficulty, where would they go to? The supervisor. Why? Because the supervisor knows. The supervisor was expected to know, right? But today, you cannot operate from that perspective, because there are people below you who are more knowledgeable than you. And therefore, you can only coach them to better utilize what they know. In fact, I always tell people, for me, if you don't know something, if there's nothing you can do better than me, like in everything I am better than you, then I don't need you in my team. So I get somebody in my team because there is something they can do better than me. And therefore, because you now want to also take advantage of the knowledge in your team, that is why you must coach them. Okay? Someone called Woodrow says, I use all the brains I have plus all the other brains I can borrow. So if I can borrow, how many are we here? If I can borrow 20 brains to use, I will not just use mine. I will also use those brains. So when we talk about GROW model, in terms of coaching, I will usually say that you need to ask your team what their goal is, and then and we're going to go deeper into this, so don't worry if you don't really grasp the idea, but you ask them what their goal is, what is the current reality, okay? What options they have in view of the current realities, and what they will do. Like after, the coaching session is over, what will you do? What are you going to do now in line with what you want to achieve? So we're going to be looking at that model. We are going to take coaching very, very seriously. And coaching is very different from mentorship. So we're not doing mentorship, we're doing coaching. Okay, very important. So we'll be talking about that. So you need to coach. That's a principle of supervision and personality improvement suggestions. So suggest how they can improve their personality in order for them to perform better. So principle number one was people must understand clearly what is expected of them. Number two, just remember, people must be shown how to do it. Must have guidance in their work. Principle number three. What is principle number three? good work should always be recognized. As a supervisor, do not miss the opportunity to recognize good work. If you want to be a high impact supervisor, never miss an opportunity to recognize good work. In fact, according to research, positive reinforcement achieves better results than punishment. So some of these things are the ones we are going to be looking at. How do you get somebody to be coming to work early? And you've been trying to get them to come to work early. You've tried your best and you can't. You have two options. One, to quarrel them for the days that they were late. Or two, to recognize them and reward them for the day they came to work early. Which of the two works? Now, according to research, when you provide this positive reinforcement, that produces sustainable results. Okay? Even in our children, if you have a child, that strategy works very well. Instead of quarreling them all the time because of the bad things they did, especially if you're trying to change some behavior, how about you recognize them for the good that they actually achieved? Or even our spouses. There are people who, your spouse always comes home at 3 a.m. And for 10 years, they have been quarreled for coming home at 3 a.m. in the morning. And quarreling has not achieved anything in terms of changing their behavior. Okay? The day they come home at 6 p.m., that day is not noticed. So after going through this class, if you're in such a situation, now it's time to change mentality. Focus more on that day that this person came at 6 p.m. In fact, for the next 1 week, keep reminding them about that day when they did something exceptional and observe. You know, change your ways of doing things. Yeah. Because you cannot continue doing things the same way. If quarreling has not worked for the last 10 years, I mean, why do we think it's going to work for the next 3, 4, 5 years? It's not going to work. Change your tactic. So as a supervisor, the same thing. If warning letters and all those kind of things and disciplinary action, if they haven't changed people's behavior, look at the positive and reinforce them for that good thing that they did. Now, when we talk about recognizing good work, we are going to be talking about delegation. This is one thing you do not delegate. Recognizing good work, you don't delegate. That's your job as a supervisor. You go to the person who you're supposed to recognize, shake their hand firmly, look at them in the eye, and tell them, I'm proud of you. You did a good job. Keep it up. Okay? Or buy them coffee. You know, take them out and buy them coffee. They will always remember the day the supervisor bought them coffee. Always recognize good work. So Now that we've talked a lot about good work, what happens when somebody performs below expectations? What do we do? Poor work deserves constructive criticism. Now, the word here is constructive, not destructive. It is constructive criticism. Constructive criticism is where you express disappointment in someone without condemning them, because you're solving the poor performance. You're not solving the person, you're solving the poor performance. So for me, if somebody performs below expectations, again, I look at them in the eye and tell them, I am disappointed in you because I know you can do better. Okay, I know you can do better. You have disappointed me. Okay, and don't mince words. Don't quarrel. By the way, don't quarrel. Quarreling never works. Take it from me. I have been supervising people for more than 10 years. Quarreling, it does not work. But if you look at somebody in the eye and tell them you have, don't tell them you are a disappointment. Because it is not who they are. It is more of what they've done. Okay? You have disappointed. I know you can do better. I know you're better than this. Okay? I know you're better than this. So poor work deserves constructive criticism. Don't play games. Don't joke about it. Don't make them, even if you're friends. For me, actually for me, I like, criticizing my friends constructively. I'll tell them, you're my friend, yes, but you have disappointed me. So, and don't let them dilute the seriousness of that criticism. Because some people are going to try and bring another subject to dilute. In fact, some people, I've seen some people coming to me, and when I am providing positive criticism, they usually tell me, but last month, I performed very well. Yeah, but we are not talking about last month, we're talking about today. That was then. And I congratulated you then. This is now. Okay? And if possible, once you provide constructive criticism, during that interaction, don't discuss anything else. Don't discuss anything else. Let the person go and think about it. Let it sink. Let them see how objective you are. But then, the next time you're meeting this person, do not let them feel like you're still living in that moment. Let them know that you've moved on. There are supervisors who, if you do something bad, they're going to show you moods, some moods for a whole week. That is not a good supervisor. A good supervisor deals with the issue there and then, okay, and then moves on. So poor work deserves constructive criticism. Very, very important. Do not let an opportunity to constructively criticize your work pass you. Take every opportunity, because this is also a means of making people improve. That is principle number 4. What is principle number 5? Now, principle number 5 of high impact supervisors is people should have opportunities to show that they can accept greater responsibility. People should have opportunities to show that they can accept greater responsibilities. One of the most frustrating things about working in an organization is not being overworked. In fact, people don't leave organizations because they are being overworked. They leave because they are being underutilized. Underutilized. When I was doing my master's degree, I did my master's in strategic management. There was this lecturer who had a PhD, I think, in finance or something like that. So he was telling us the day when he got a PhD in finance, he thought, what better place to work than in a bank? You know, if I go to and work in a bank in a very senior position, I am going to use all my knowledge in finance because I cannot allow that knowledge just to sit here. So he got a job in the bank, got a very senior position. So his job was to approve checks. You see those checks that, or those transactions that involve millions and millions. Because he's a very senior person, that transaction could not be processed until he approves it. Now, the challenge was that because it is a big bank, these transactions were so many, okay? And when a check is landing on his desk for him to verify and approve, it has passed through so many eyes such that the probability of getting an error in that check or that transaction document is almost zero. So he would get a check on his desk, have a look at it, stamp it, and then put it in the out tray. Pick another one, stamp, out tray. Another one, stamp, out tray. And so when he would get to his office in the morning, he would find a stack of checks and other transaction documents. So he would pick, stamp, put here, pick, stamp, put aside, pick, stamp, like that. And then at 10, he goes, takes tea, comes back and sits on his desk again. Stamp, 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 until evening, goes home. Tomorrow morning, comes, continues, stamps, until his hand started aching. Remember, this is a PhD holder. He was telling us, by the end of the first week, even his working style had changed. He was working like this. And he realized this is something that somebody who has never even gone to school can do. Okay? He realized his mental capacities were being heavily underutilized. And therefore, he resigned after a week and looked for a job at the university to teach. So he was telling us, now here, you guys, you should challenge me because I need to use my knowledge. So what is frustrating most of the people you are supervising is they feel they have something they can do. It's resting here, but it's not being utilized. Okay? And they took time to learn that. They paid money to learn what is in here, but you're not utilizing it. So if you get an opportunity to get people show you the bigger things that they can do, give it to them. If you have a project, that needs very good coordination, take one of your team members and entrust that project to them. And then sit back and observe. You might be surprised to see how much they are able to put in. Okay? So keep looking for opportunities to allow your team to have a platform to demonstrate to you how much more they can be able to accomplish. Do not, as a supervisor, do not underutilize your team. Very, very important. So people should have opportunities to show that they can accept greater responsibility. Principle number 6, people should be encouraged to improve themselves. As a supervisor, it is your job to ensure that people are growing. In fact, I usually consult for some organizations regarding performance management. And one of the things that I am encouraging every organization to do, the ones that I am consulting for, is when you are coming up with performance appraisals and you're developing key performance indicators or KPIs, one of the KPIs should be self-improvement. In fact, for some of the organizations that I have helped, come up with performance management systems, they have made it a policy. The same way you would receive a warning letter for not achieving your targets at work, is the same way you would receive a warning letter for saying that you're going to take this number of courses, but you didn't take them the year. For being stagnant, you'd get a warning letter for being stagnant. In fact, I am told in the military, I don't know whether it happens in all countries, but in the military, if you stay for so long without growing, without moving from one rank to another, you're dismissed. Why are you stagnating? You see, the people who stagnate for so long are the ones, they start becoming troublemakers. I mean, look at the organizations that you have worked for. Somebody who has stayed in the same position for 10 years or 15 years, okay? They are most likely to be the troublemakers. So people must be encouraged to improve themselves. One of my lecturers told me when we were finishing our undergraduate, he told us, some of you will go to some organizations and you will get a position and you will stay for so long in that one position. You're not moving up, you're not moving down, you're not moving sideways, you're just there. You stay there for so long until you become part of the furniture of that organization. There's no difference between you and the desk. That is what our lecturer told us when we were graduating. So I don't want to become part of the furniture in any organization. I don't want any of my team members to become part of the furniture. In fact, supervisors should also be assessed based on how much their teams have grown. If your team is stagnant, then you as a supervisor, there's a problem somewhere. Okay? In fact, we usually say, leaders, please listen to this, leaders are not judged by how many followers they have. They're judged by how many other leaders they develop. You're not judged by how many followers you have as a leader. You're judged by how many other leaders you develop. Take it as a personal initiative to ensure that no one in your department will remain stagnant. When you're having a conversation with them, ask them, you told me you are registering for master's degree. How far are you? Do you want me to give you permission tomorrow to go and collect the application form? What is your timeline? When should I check back with you on this? Follow them through, guide them. People should be encouraged to improve themselves. And finally, people should work in a safe and healthy environment, okay? Ensure that the environment where people are working in is safe and healthy. So what principles have we talked about? Just as a recap. Number one, we said principle number one of high impact supervision. If you want to be a high impact supervisor, people must always understand clearly what is expected of them. Okay. Number two, people must have guidance in their work, that is information, techniques enabling better work, coaching and personality improvement suggestions. Okay. Number three, good work should always be recognized. Poor work deserves constructive criticism. People should have opportunities to show that they can accept greater responsibility. People should be encouraged to improve themselves, and people should work in a safe and healthy environment. Okay.